Hello, I'm Jared Taylor with American Renaissance. There are a lot of people who don't want anyone in the world to see my videos. So if you like what you see, I'd appreciate it very much if you'd send the link to a few of your friends. It is now the fashion among African Americans, as we now call them, to shuck the American part and just become African, that is, to go back to the mother continent. They think the United States is too dangerously racist to live in. The BBC wrote about the African American who moved to Ghana to escape U.S. racism. As the man explained, he no longer looks over his shoulder, worrying that police will pull him over, or worse still, kill his son. In 2014, Lakeisha Ford decided to move to Ghana. As she explained, Mike Brown got shot, and it just put this huge distaste in my mouth for, like, the country and the flag and what it means to be American. Tiffany Drayton wrote an article for the New York Times called, "I'm a Black American. I had to get out. The racism was too much. I fled." She said it was the Trayvon Martin business that did it. They don't all go to Africa. As CNN reported, Demetria Brown packed bags, quit her job in law enforcement, and moved to Mexico after George Floyd's death. Many blacks think they could be killed any time by the police. In a June 5 article in the New York Times, Chad Sanders wrote, "My book is coming out in a few months, and I don't know if I'm going to be alive to see it because I'm a black man." He goes on to write this, "As a black man, what I actually feel constantly is the fear of death. The fear that when I go for my morning stroll through Central Park or to 7-Eleven for an Arizona iced tea, I won't make it back home." Would Mr. Sanders even listen if you explained to him that in 2018, 7,400 black people were murdered in the United States, almost all of them by other blacks, while only about 250 blacks were killed by the police, and all but 23 of them were armed, dangerous criminals. Those 23 who weren't armed were also criminals, and almost all posed a legitimate threat. Last year, only 9 unarmed blacks were killed by the police, and all of them were in some kind of confrontation with officers. The chances of Mr. Sanders being killed by a cop as he walks home with his iced tea are essentially zero. Frankly, he's nuts. But I think he's a good candidate for Africa. I'd say George Yancey, who is a professor of philosophy at Emory University, is another good candidate. He wanted to know, also in the New York Times, should I give up on white people? He explained, "America suffers from a pervasively malignant and malicious systemic illness, white racism. There is also an appalling lack of courage, weakness of will, spinelessness, and indifference in our country that helps to sustain it." Well, yes, Professor, if that's what you think about the country that made you a professor at Emory University, you should give up on white people. And there's a place that wants you. The West African country of Ghana declared 2019 to be the year of return and invited all black Americans to go live there. Look at this happy celebration of return. There is an African American Association of Ghana that estimates there are 5,000 of them living in Accra, the main city. Don't they look like they're having a gay old time? The Pulitzer Center has a series called Finding Their Roots, Blacks Repatriate to Africa. It explains that overall, the black Americans who moved to Ghana say they feel a sense of freedom not having to think about race. That's strange. They like being in a country where everybody's black and they don't have to think about race? You mean they don't miss diversity? It used to be that white Americans didn't have to think about race, but those days are gone for good, aren't they? We are beat over the head every day with race. Back to Africa is an old idea. One of the most influential Back to Africa guys was Marcus Garvey. His Universal Negro Improvement Association had a New York City headquarters that could seat 6,000 people. and the 20,000 members who met for his annual convention in 1920 had to hold their meetings in Madison Square Garden. In 1921, he recorded a speech in which he said,
"We want to unite the Negro race in this country. We want every Negro to work for one common object, that of building a nation of his own on the great continent of Africa."
He even established a steamship company, the Black Star Line, to carry blacks back to Africa. But it was mismanaged, and things didn't work out. There's a long history of blacks giving up on trying to live with white people because they didn't think it would work. A lot of famous white people were convinced it wouldn't work either. Thomas Jefferson believed slavery would be abolished, and, in his words, when freed, the Negro is to be removed beyond the reach of mixture. James Madison agreed, writing that freed blacks ought to be permanently removed beyond the region occupied by or allotted to a white population. Madison was the chief executive of the American Colonization Society, which was established in 1816 to send blacks to Africa. At its inaugural meeting, Henry Clay described its purpose: to rid our country of a useless and pernicious, if not dangerous, portion of the population. The following famous Americans were not just members of the Colonization Society, but officers: Andrew Jackson, Daniel Webster, Stephen Douglas, William Seward, Francis Scott Key, Winfield Scott, and two Chief Justices of the Supreme Court, John Marshall and Roger Taney. James Monroe worked so hard to send blacks to Africa that the capital of Liberia is named Monrovia in his honor. Abraham Lincoln said that blacks in the United States were a troublesome presence, and even at the height of the Civil War, he was making plans to send them away. President James Garfield wrote this about blacks: "I would be glad if they could be colonized, sent to heaven, or got rid of in any decent way." In a letter to his daughter, Harry Truman wrote, "I am strongly of the opinion Negroes ought to be in Africa, yellow men in Asia, and white men in Europe and America." A lot of white people believed that separation was the only solution to the race problem, but separation was never achieved. Now it's black people who want separation. Kamala Harris likes separation. She wrote about her first day at Howard, the black university. "This is heaven," Harris recounts in her biography, The Truths We Hold, An American Journey. "There were hundreds of people, and everyone looked like me. Not one white person in the room. For her, that was heaven." Well, I hope Kamala Harris becomes president, and I hope she spends all her time trying to send black people to heaven. Because you know what? That would be heaven for us too. Going back to Africa is great. Maybe Kamala Harris will encourage that. I would. But even here in the United States, we will all get a little closer to heaven if we give up on this futile idea of living together. After more than half a century of civil rights atonement, trillions of dollars for black uplift, endless celebration of black heroes and role models, perpetual hysteria over what just might, be an act of insensitivity, we still get race riots, looting, arson. The more we do for black people, the more they seem to hate us. It's not working. If this were a marriage, it would be called irreconcilable differences. We need a divorce. And maybe Kamala Harris will lead the way. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this video channel. Also, please visit our website at amren.com. That's AMREN.com. You'll find videos, podcasts, articles, I think quite a lot of things that will interest you.